Hello everyone and welcome back to another high-level match of StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a best-of-3 series of Zerg versus Protoss, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on a new map, and this particular map is called Pink Moon. Now spawning here in the top left-hand corner, playing with the blue Zerg drones, we have MeomaikA. MeomaikA apparently starting off this series with an extractor trick. This is not really something that we see anymore in 2022. I casted a best of 3 between MeomaikA and Showtime last week, and honestly, in those games, we saw some of the most creative Zerg builds that I've seen in a long time. So that's a 15 supply Overlord into a 15 supply spawning pool? Okay, I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. First off, his opponent in the opposite corner of the map from Denmark. He's one of the very best Protoss players on the planet, and he goes by the name of MaxPax. Now, I'm not expecting a whole lot of craziness coming out of MaxPax here, so we'll keep our eyes on MeomaikA primarily. So real quick, the extractor trick. It's one of those moves that used to be quite popular, but these days it's very uncommon. So obviously as a Zerg, you hit a supply block at 14 out of 14. He does get the natural up, by the way, at 17 supply. But you hit a supply block at 14 out of 14 if you don't make an Overlord earlier than that. So what he did is he went up to 14 out of 14, started up an extractor, then made one more drone, canceled the extractor, effectively allowing him to be at 15 out of 14 supply for a little bit. Then he went for an Overlord into a spawning pool. Already, this early game is a little bit funky. And I think that's probably where Protoss players struggle, because MaxPax is looking at this right now. Theoretically speaking, this is not the best way to open up as Zerg, but how many times have you played against this as Protoss in 2022? I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first time that MaxPax is playing against this build order this year. I mean, maybe once or twice, but it's incredibly uncommon, especially when it comes to the opponents that MaxPax usually faces off against. So, a couple slow zones right here in the middle of the map. It's gonna, at the very least, prevent these Zerglings from just straight up rushing across the map. There's already a Zealot waiting, as well as a pylon in the wall-off. I don't think a gateway can fit over there. So, a little bit dangerous, maybe, especially against someone like MeomaikA, who is certainly not afraid to go for a Baneling Nest if he wants to. He's gonna leave the drones in gas once again. This is one thing that boggled my mind in that series against Showtime, where normally Zerg players pull the drones out of gas and they'll go for a later lair. MeomaikA was oftentimes caught going really quick Hydras. Now, Hydras, according to most of the top-level Zergs, they're considered to be baby lurkers, okay? That's the only thing they're good at. They're only really good at, like, morphing into lurkers, and that's really about it. I mean, obviously, you have, you know, something you can use in the meantime, but the majority of the time, especially against Protoss, we don't really see a whole lot of Hydra play. Majority of the time, it's not considered to be that great of a unit for just straight-up fighting. Additional gateways coming up right now for MaxPax. He decides to go for a pretty quick warp gate research here as well. No tech route whatsoever, though. So no Twilight Council, no Brobo facility, no Stargate. Anyways, there's going to be a couple of adepts right here together with a Zealot. They're not going to shade into the main base. There's a Spore Crawler coming up as well, and Queens together with the Lynx, I think, should be enough. Link speed is going to finish up momentarily here. Okay, maybe getting a couple of drones would be nice. Very good control right here, by the way, from our Danish Protoss. Getting 3 drones for 1 adept is not bad whatsoever, although I don't know if these units are going to be able to make their way home, because Metabolic Boost at this point is done. So MeomaikA has started up the Spores right here in anticipation of his opponent going for a couple of Oracles. None of that is happening, though. Well, now the units do get caught right here in the middle of the map. None of that is happening because it's a super late Twilight Council. So MaxPax going up against the Zerg, who's going for a funky build order, but apparently he's doing the same thing right now at home as well. Okay, Lair does start up. I think you really need a Roach Warren here, MeomaikA. Either that or a Baneling Nest. Yeah, it's gonna be Glaives from MaxPax. So this is what's weird about this, right, is that normally Glaives, Glaive to Depths that is, they are played as a timing attack. So you usually try to rush out this upgrade, and then you push across the map with as many Adepts as you can make and then expand behind it. This is MaxPax going for a move out already, but I don't actually think he wants to commit. There's no way. This looks like the conventional Glaives timing, but Glaives is not even remotely done just yet, so I'm fairly sure he's just gonna warp in more and more units at home. While this is happening, he's gonna go for 7... Is that 7 gateways? No, 6 gateways here in total, together with a robotics facility. I mean, Zergs aren't gonna, like, fight this off creep. with Zerglings alone, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. This whole game doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Warp Gate coming up right now as well. So MaxPax is going to go for what seems to be a 2-base all-in. And honestly, against a Zerg player who is not rushing out a third hatchery that quickly, it does make a lot of sense. Careful though, yeah. At this point, he must have realized that those units aren't actually firing that quickly. Recall is used, and the Adepts all managed to get out of there safely. Okay, so how many Adepts do we have at this point? 12? Prism is just about to finish up. Glaives is just about to finish up as well. MaxPax may consider going for a third base on the back of this, but... This is... Hydras? This is what I was talking about. MeomaikA loves Hydralisks. No Roachworn, no Baneling Nest, none of that. It's just going to be Zerglings and Hydras. And, well, if there's one unit that the Adepts are... Or if there's two units, rather, that the Adepts are really good against at this point in the game, it's going to be Hydras and Zerglings because they deal bonus damage to light. That hatchery is in a lot of trouble, actually. We don't normally see Adepts killing hatcheries, but... Well, a couple of them did get committed, but they're going to get picked up very, very easily. This is an awful lot of Adepts, though. I think you can actually just fight up the... Or you can just straight up fight that army right here from the Zerg. Is he going to commit? I think he is going to commit. It is going to obviously allow those Zerglings to get a nice wraparound, but honestly, the Adepts are absolutely murdering. And I believe that just like that, it has to be MaxPax who obtains the victory in game number 1. Honestly, a very impressive game right there from MaxPax. Despite the fact that he can't really have that much practice against a 15 supply spawning pool. Maybe he didn't even realize it was a 15 pool. Maybe he assumed it was just going to be a 14 pool or something along those lines. But anyways, he prepared a build that worked like an absolute charm. I've noticed in MeomaikA's games, actually, that he doesn't scout that much. So... yeah, he had no idea about the Twilight Council opener. I think otherwise he probably would have done something a little bit differently there. I mean, Hydras and Zerglings can work if you have overwhelming numbers, but Roaches and Banelings and, you know, just other units, maybe even more Queens, they just trade a little bit nicer against that particular Protoss timing attack. Anyways, game number 2. We find ourselves on a map called Cryolysis. This is another map from the Team Liquid map contest. This map is made by Hyper1. Previous map, Pink Moon, is made by Monitor. Seemed like a good map, by the way. That was the first time I was ever looking at a game on Pink Moon, but seemed solid. MeomaikA trying to sneak a drone towards the natural, but this is a little bit annoying, and I think he's going to have to opt to go for the third base next. Really? If we're going to wait until Zerglings are out, it's going to take forever for that hatchery to start up. I mean, MaxPax is just going to pylon block, you know? Yeah, there you go. As soon as the actual, well, base health of the probe was affected, he's got to be careful. But as soon as that was affected, he immediately decided to go for a pylon. And now we're going to go for not a third base? Okay. Oh my god. Oh! Alright then. Well, MaxPax apparently not actually queuing that probe towards the natural of the Zerg there. And he does not get the follow-up block. That could have been an absolute disaster right there. I like the snow effect, by the way, on this map. Looks sick. Speaking of snow, actually, I came back from DreamHack Atlanta yesterday. So the videos that have gone up on my YouTube channel over the last week or so, I prepared those in advance. Well, basically, I wasn't in Atlanta, right? So the tournament is called DreamHack Atlanta. However, the commentary and the production was done over in Stockholm in Sweden. And for like 2 days, it just snowed the entire time. For some reason, you'd imagine that Sweden is prepared for snowfall, but... no. I mean, they did a good job, I guess, on the second or third day that we were there. But the first day that the snow came down, it seemed like nobody in the city was prepared. A lot of people driving around with their, well, summer tires and all that. Lots of problems with the highway. Our taxi driver, it was, or our Uber driver, rather, it was not my favorite thing to drive through at like 4 in the morning. Anyways, not a whole lot of sleep over the last week. Since obviously we were broadcasting from Sweden at a tournament that was taking place over in the States. The time zone was, well, gonna be Atlanta based, right? So we didn't usually start until pretty late into the day. And I'm a bit of a boomer. I like to wake up early. Wasn't quite prepared for it. But let's just say that I've got my fair share of snow out of the way for this year already. Okay. Yeah, pretty good, actually. What exactly is gonna be the build order this time around for MaxPax? It's once again gonna be a Twilight, but I almost feel that's bait because he put that Twilight Council right in range of the of the Overlord, and MaxPax can see that Overlord there. Unless he's feeling this confident right now that he... yeah, is not concerned about it at all. But I find that positioning on the Twilight Council a little bit funky. There's a chance that he autopiloted, I suppose. I mean, this is not the prettiest of walls either. I can imagine that MaxPax, at the time that this game was played, about probably 2, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, he probably didn't have a whole lot of games under his belt for this particular map either. Especially against the pool first, right? Because it really does mess things up. This is an ugly wall off. Anyhow, it's once again gonna be the Glaives upgrade right here for the Adepts. And this time around, MeomaikA is, well, seeing it from a mile away. Maybe he doesn't do a lot of scouting, but this time around he does go over the Roach Warren. I think that makes a lot of sense. I was a little concerned he was once again gonna rush into a Hydra Den, but no, not this time around. Okay, so let's look around the map for just a moment. Maybe I don't have time for it. Looks honestly pretty standard. Nothing all too crazy here. I think these rocks can actually get destroyed to, like, open up, yeah, they for sure can get destroyed to open up another attack path. A lot of Zerglings are just about to spawn. I was gonna say, I don't think you can commit with those Adepts just yet. You really want to wait with the, well, the Adept push until the Glaives upgrade is done. That was mostly just there to scare the Zerg. MeomaikA, though, saw the timing of the Glaives start, right? He saw the amount of chrono boost, assuming he was paying attention, so he should know exactly when it is that these Protoss units are going to be committing, and we're coming up on that moment right now. Now, MaxPax is standing right underneath a couple of Overlords. The nice advantage right here of going for such a quick lair again is that you can actually get yourself an Overseer out in case it would be a Dark Templar follow-up. Honestly, I like MeomaikA's position here quite a bit more. Yeah, he's got 6 Roaches coming up right now as well. He's already got 3 of them, 31 Zerglings. It all comes down to this first wave of Adepts, though. Maybe he wants to opt to kill the 3rd hatchery instead. I mean, the Adepts deal a lot of damage. It's 11 Adepts at this point. Zerg doesn't have the bases connected with creep, and honestly, yeah, he can just target fire down the Roaches instead. Good control right here from our Danish Protoss. He does need to get something done with this, though. I don't think he can just sit here and not kill the hatchery, right? Killing a half-done hatchery, not ideal. He is going to commit right here to the Zerg's natural mineral line. Drones, in the meantime, also in some trouble in the main base with follow-up reinforcements. Would love to see that Spore Crawler move. 14 drones have gone down, and MaxPax right now is at a very, very solid worker lead. The problem is, though, as soon as the Roaches have their speed upgrade, which they do right now, MeomaikA is going to be able to go across the map. He just killed a ton of those Adepts. There's not that much of an army available, but it looks to me that MaxPax has prepared for that as well, as he's decided to go for a very fast Disruptor follow-up. Glaives into Disruptors has been relatively popular lately. I mean, I've seen it a couple times before. It makes sense in theory, but normally, when it comes to defending against Glaive Adepts, Zerg players opt to go... Careful now. Okay, normally Zerg players opt to go for a delayed lair, and therefore they won't have Roach speed done. So against slow Roaches, it's a bit of a difficult one to pronounce as one word. Anyways, yeah, Disruptors are pretty amazing. Against Roaches with Glial Reconstitution, however... well, they're certainly a lot more vulnerable. Yep. Not the Disruptors themselves alone, but also obviously the Zerg army being able to split away. And that means that we're gonna go to our final game of the day. And that game is taking place on a map called Lazarus Wastes. I've casted a couple of games on this particular map so far. I actually really like this one. I think this is one of the best from the most recent Team Liquid map contest. I mean, I haven't seen that many games in general, but I think this one is like sufficiently weird enough to be interesting, you know? So not only is the mid section of this map very different than what we normally see with a lot of these like rock formations, the 6 outer bases, so all 6 of them, have 10 mineral fields on them each, rather than a conventional 8. Now they're pretty far out, and you've got to destroy the rocks right here, which is a little bit annoying too, so you can't rush them out, but it certainly does create a much more interesting game as soon as those bases do come into play. I actually like it quite a bit. I hope we're going to be seeing this at some point on the ladder. Anyways, despite the fact that this is a delayed probe scout, MeomaikA still decides to opt for a spotting pool first. We've now seen a pool first in literally every single game so far. So, just to clarify, the norm is to go for a hatch into a gas geyser or into a spawning pool. Then pull the drones out of gas at 100, rush out that metabolic boost upgrade, get a third hatchery going, and then eventually put the drones back in gas to continuously make those tech units. Because when you think about it, right? Early on, as a Zerg, what are you looking to make? Zerglings, they only cause minerals. Queens, they only cause minerals. Drones, they only cause minerals. And Overlords, they only cause minerals. Maybe a couple Spore Crawlers, Spine Crawlers. Guess what? Those also only cause minerals. MeomaikA doesn't pull out of gas, though. So these drones, yeah, at least in the games that I've seen, they're probably going to live inside of that gas geyser for the foreseeable future. It's so weird. Makes me really uncomfortable to see a lair start up at like 200 something gas, but anyways, pretty sure that that is going to be the plan here once more. MaxPax responding with a Cybercore before the Nexus. There's actually a good response right here from MaxPax. Not going for the Zealot, waiting for the Adept here instead. Normally you go for a 20 supply Nexus into a 20 supply Cybercore, but MaxPax here switched them around, so 20 supply Cybercore into a 20 Nexus instead. It's a small difference, but it allows you to get that Adept in time. And it's only actually 2 Zerglings. So despite the fact that MaxPax didn't scout super early, he still figured out that indeed that was a 17 supply spotting pool rather than a more aggressive version of a pool opener. And that definitely puts him in a pretty good spot right now, as he did not overcommit to defending at home. He's once again going to go for a second gateway over here, though. That is kind of interesting. Yeah, there's a third gateway now in the main base too, but that is not something that MeomaikA has scouted. MeomaikA actually going for a super quick Roach Warren. That's like 2 minutes and 40 seconds on a Roach Warren. The only reason why I would imagine you go for a Roach Warren right now is if you want to go for a Roach Rush towards the other side of the map. The problem is, what if this would be a second gateway followed up with a Stargate? It's a Twilight Council in this case. So MaxPax going for Glaive to Depths again? Really? 3 times in a row? That is so funny. Like, pull first, and just the whole strategies in this game are a little bit wild. But if this would be a Void Ray opener, right, which is actually surprisingly common over the last couple of weeks, we see a lot of Protoss players opting to go for a Void Ray rather than an Oracle, or they go Void Ray first into an Oracle, or Oracle into a Void Ray, or Void Ray into, like, triple Oracle. There's a couple of varieties here. Making a lot of attacking units at this point in the game would be a little bit difficult to pull off, because you'd be knocking on the front door of Protoss, and then suddenly a Void Ray opens up, which is not, you know, it's not really what you want to see when you knock on the door. Anyways, Glaives is indeed starting up. MeomaikA sees the shade out right here, and he's gonna be able to catch these units pretty easily. Yeah, nicely done. Immediately recalled. Okay, that's very good. Only losing 1 Adept right there. Very fast fingers on MaxPax. Starts up more and more pylons. Shield battery comes up as well, and he's gonna have to warp in as many units as possible. Glaives is rather late. It's gonna be tons of Zerglings. Yeah, so I guess we're gonna morph those Roaches into Ravagers. No lair or anything on the back of this, by the way. This front door needs to be open. Now imagine a Void Ray here. Imagine there was a Void Ray at this point. Okay. The Adepts are still available, though. I don't think he can really get much done. MeomaikA forced to go for 3 Overlords as well. Hitting a bit of a supply block. This is so ugly. Like, this whole Zerg build is just... This is what I'm afraid of whenever I see Zergs going for something unconventional. If this does not work, and at this point I have a hard time imagining that it does, he's got a very small economy. Look at this, right? The income advantage, already 700 minerals more for every minute that goes by for MaxPax. Now, if he loses the units, though, for free right here in the middle of the map, that would be a disaster. Nice couple of corrosive piles there. Yeah, recall is obviously on cooldown. And you know what? MeomaikA cleans that up. Those Ravagers are really helping out quite a bit. He plays these very swarmy armies. Like, especially the games that we saw against Showtime, they really reminded me of Brute War strategies. Oh my god, is he actually pulling this off? No way. No way. There's an Immortal on the back of this too. An Immortal is going to be pretty sweet, but you're certainly going to need a shield battery. Glaive to Depths, though, still good against Zerglings, right? That's another shield battery down the drain, though. Battery number 3 coming up, and now the natural is actually broken open. No way. Just imagine if this was a Stargate build. Just imagine for just a second. Well, you know what? Actually, hold that thought. Yeah, no. Ooh, he's even preventing the Zerg units now from retreating. He's like, no, you wanted to come in here. Now you're gonna stay. That Immortal helping out a ton. Provides so much supplemental damage, and as long as it's got a shield battery, Immortal usually doesn't die very quickly at all. Okay. Would love to see a Prism now coming up if MaxPax wants to go for a counterattack. The game is actually pretty even now. A lot of Overlords here, accidentally moving out on the map. MaxPax, though, not stopping here to go in for the counterattack. Can he really do a counterattack, though, without a Prism? He's just warping units in, and it is natural, I guess, and sending them across. That is a little bit slow. A lot more Zerg units coming up on the back of this, too. I'm a little afraid we're going to see a massive surround once again with some more corrosive biles. That is a scary Zerg unit composition, although honestly, the Protoss unit count is looking pretty healthy right now, too. Queen's helping out. There's a couple of biles, but only connecting with a single adept. Orange blood? They have orange blood? That's weird. The Observer over here, though, also scouting out exactly what's going on. Once again, we do have a nice wraparound, but as long as those corrosive biles are dodged, I don't think that MaxPax is in that much trouble. Roach rushing a Protoss player? It kind of worked in this game, but, like, it really doesn't make any sense. It could have easily been a Robo Facility opener as well, right? That would have been such a problem. Anyways, I love the fact that MeomaikA continuously goes for a variety of build orders that make me scratch my head, right? I'm sitting here the entire time trying to analyze what the man is doing, but maybe what I should be doing is just admire, right? I'll just sit back and just maybe analyze it as the build order is executed. Like, after the fact, we can figure out if it was worth it. So far, I think we can all, well, decide here that this was not worth it. Despite the fact that Protoss lost a lot of workers on the other side of the map, Zerg has not made any drones here for a long, long time. Obviously, MaxPax has the luxury to make a bunch of workers while simultaneously making army, whereas Zerg obviously has that larva mechanic. And eventually, that economy of his allowed him to produce an army that MeomaikA can't stop. I'm very surprised, though, that we saw a Glaives opener 3 out of 3 games from MaxPax. In my mind, he's very much so a Stargate kind of guy in this matchup.